Hello, my name is Katie Cicchino. I am a graduate student in the Education Literacy Department at SUNY Albany. I'm also a library and media specialist, and I've created a presentation that includes an interactive read aloud and a follow-up dramatic play activity for students who are preschool age. This is a quote from Fred Rogers. You may know him also as Mr. Rogers. Play is often talked about as if it were a relief from serious learning, but for children, play is serious learning. This is a similar quote that Maria Montessori had said, play is the work of childhood. And I'm paraphrasing there, but the general idea is that children at play are actively learning. And they're learning in all different rich ways. Imaginative play allows children to work on creative problem solving. They can engage in authentic literacy activities. For example, if they were pretending to have a restaurant and one student was taking orders, they'd be engaging with literacy. They can develop oral language. They're speaking and acting and practicing those oral language skills. They're also developing core social skills, such as negotiation, as maybe they decide who gets to be the mommy this time when they're playing house, collaboration, coming up with ideas together, and empathy, that they're beginning to really interact with each other and put themselves in each other's shoes and in other people's shoes as they play. Some of these ideas were from a webinar that I watched, and the companion book is quoted down below, Purposeful Play. The inspirational text for this activity is a book called Roxaboxen. This is, excuse me, excuse me one moment. This is a book by Alice McLaren, and it's illustrated by Barbara Cooney. Now, this is a bit of a higher level read aloud. And if you are going to be doing this activity with your child or a group of students who are very young, you may or may not want to read the entire book to them. You may want to take time to stop and also make it a truly interactive read aloud and discuss the book as you are reading it. However, as a librarian, I will say that I have often read this book to children in kindergarten early on in the year. And at first, it was kind of an experiment to see if they would like it. And it ends up being a favorite. Students come back when they're in high school and remember the read aloud of particularly this book. And I think you will see why. It's really all about imaginative play. And although the text can be a bit more high level at times, it truly captures the heart of almost every child I've ever read it with, and adults too, I believe. So I recorded a straight reading of this text. I didn't stop and ask questions, but we'll talk more about that after. For now, you can listen to Roxaboxen. This story is called Roxaboxen. It is by Alice McLaren and illustrated by Barbara Cooney. Roxaboxen. Marian called it Roxaboxen. She always knew the name of everything. There across the road, it looked like any rocky hill. Nothing but sand and rocks, some old wooden boxes, cactus and greasewood and thorny aquatillo, but it was a special place. The street between Roxaboxen and the houses curved like a river, so Marion named it the River Road. And after that, you had to ford a river to reach Roxaboxen. Of course, all of Marion's sisters came. Anna May and Frances and little Jean, Charles from next door, even though he was 12. Oh, and Eleanor, naturally. And Jamie, with his brother Paul. Later on there were others, but these were the first. Well, not really the first. Roxaboxen had always been there and must have belonged to others before. When Marion dug up a tin box filled with round black pebbles, everyone knew what it was. It was buried treasure. Those pebbles were the money of Roxaboxen. You could still find others like them if you looked hard enough. So some days became treasure hunting days with everybody trying to find that special kind. And then on other days, you might just find one without even looking. A town of Roxaboxen began to grow, traced in lines of stone. Main Street first edged with the whitest ones, and then the houses. Charles made his of the biggest stones. After all, he was the oldest. At first, the houses were very plain, but soon they all began to add more rooms. The old wooden boxes could be shelves or tables or anything you wanted. You could find pieces of pottery for dishes. Round pieces were best. After a while, they added other streets. Frances moved to one of them and built herself a new house outlined in desert glass. Bits of amber, amethyst, and sea green. A house of jewels. And because everybody had plenty of money, there were plenty of shops. Jean helped Anna May in the bakery. Pies and cakes and bread baked warm in the sun. There were 2 ice cream parlors. Was Paul's ice cream the best or Eleanor's? Everybody kept trying them both. In Roxaboxen, you can eat all the ice cream that you want. Everybody had a car. All you needed was something round for a steering wheel. Of course, if you broke the speed limit, you had to go to jail. The jail had cactus on the floor to make it uncomfortable, and Jamie was the policeman. Anna May, quiet little Anna May, was always speeding. You'd think she'd like to go to jail. But if you had a horse, you could go as fast as the wind. There were no speed limits for horses, and you didn't have to stay on the roads. All you needed for a horse was a stick and some kind of bridle, and you could gallop anywhere. Sometimes there were wars. Once there was a great war, boys against girls. Charles and Marion were the generals. The girls had Fort Irene, and they were all Girl Scouts. The boys made a fort at the other end of Roxaboxen, and they were all bandits. Oh, the raids were fierce, loud, with whooping and the stamping of horses. The whirling swords of Octillo had sharp thorns, but when you reached your fort, you were safe. Roxaboxen had a cemetery in case anyone died, but the only grave in it was for a dead lizard. Each year when the cactus bloomed, they decorated the grave with flowers. Sometimes in the winter, when everybody was at school and the weather was bad, no one went to Roxaboxen at all, not for weeks and weeks. But it didn't matter. Roxaboxen was always waiting. Roxaboxen was always there. And spring came and the aquatillo blossomed, and everybody sucked the honey from its flowers, and everybody built new rooms, and everybody decided to have jeweled windows. That summer, there were 3 new houses on the east slope and 2 new shops on Main Street. And so it went. The seasons changed and the years went by. Roxaboxen was always there. The years went by and the seasons changed until at last the friends had all grown tall, and one by one they moved away to other houses, to other towns. So you might think that was the end of Roxaboxen, but oh no, because none of them ever forgot Roxaboxen. Not one of them ever forgot. Years later, Marion's children listened to the stories of that place and fell asleep dreaming dreams of Roxaboxen. Gray-haired Charles picked up a black pebble on the beach and stood holding it, remembering Roxaboxen. More than 50 years later, Frances went back, and Roxaboxen was still there. She could see the white stones bordering Main Street, and there where she had built her house, the desert glass still glowed, amethyst, amber, and sea green. Oops. And that's the end. And then there's an afterword here. It says, on a hill on the southeast corner of 2nd Avenue and 8th Street in Yuma, Arizona, there is a place once known as Roxaboxen. The events in this book really happened to Alice McLaren's mother. With the aid of her mother's childhood manuscript, the memories of relatives and letters and maps from the former inhabitants of Roxaboxen, Alice McLaren was able to recreate that magical world as if she had played there herself. She presents us with a celebration of the active imagination, of the ability of children to create even with the most unpromising materials, a world of fantasy so real and multidimensional that it earns a lasting place in memory. Artist Barbara Cooney saw Roxaboxen as one of her toughest assignments yet, constructing a magical world out of something that wasn't there. She made 2 trips to the desert where she found a small tan hill dotted with stones and rocks, a scattering of desert plants, and now lots of broken glass and old car chests. But accompanied by Alice McLaren's 80-year-old Aunt Frances, former Roxaboxenite, the magic and spirit of Roxaboxen began to emerge, a magic found in the mind and hearts of the children who played there. That's the end. Okay, so as you can see, this is a great story about children being imaginative with almost next to nothing. There are lots of other stories like this. So if you have a younger learner, I have hyperlinked all of these books, and they're just a starting place. If you start to poke around, there are so many great read-alouds that you can read with your child or your group of children that you'd like to do this activity with for inspiration. Now on to the activity. So during this dramatic play activity, you and for the sake of, we'll say that you have a group of 5 kids with you. And after reading one of the books, the mentor text, I highly recommend Roxaboxen. However, you can explore and look at some of those other options that I did post. You can read this book with them and then decide together that perhaps they would like to also build their own town. Now, before they do this, there's going to be a lot of questions they're going to need to consider. And that will offer many opportunities for them to reflect on their background knowledge and to build some more background knowledge. So some questions that you might want to prompt them with is, what types of community helpers do you think you will need in your town? So will they need a postman? Will they need a library? Will they need a fire department? These are different types of community helpers they could think about in their neighborhood. And maybe if there are ones that are very important for them to have and ones that maybe they don't really think they need to be in their town. This is their town after all. What types of businesses would you like to have? So in Roxaboxen, it was important to them to have an ice cream parlor and a bakery. Those seem like pretty important businesses to me, and I'm sure that your group of children will come up with some great ideas for this as well. What types of public spaces would you like to make in your community? Libraries, parks, etc. You're going to really be immersing the children in an opportunity here to take a good look at the world around them and to make connections with the text, and also to practice oral language development, discussing these concepts together, reflecting on their background knowledge. And then you can provide them with prompts as well. Maybe you'll have some pictures of different community spaces ready to show them. Maybe you can even go visit some places and discuss if does a park like this seem like something you would want in your community? How will you make big decisions in your town? Is there going to be a mayor? How are those 5 children going to decide together these important decisions that every community has to make? And what will you name your town? And I've actually done activities like this with students, and a lot of them just say Waxabox. And so I usually try to get them to come up with an authentic name that they would like to name their town, not just the same one. And then what will be the best part about your town? What's going to define your town as a great place to go, a great place to live, a great place to visit? This activity gives students so much ownership and really provides them with some really rich opportunities to practice literacy skills. So social skills of negotiation, collaboration, and a lot of creative problem solving comes in when you begin designing your town. Now, with this, the sky's the limit. Roxaboxen was basically built of rocks and sticks and pebbles. There wasn't too much brought in, and there definitely didn't seem to be any parental involvement in building the town. So this can be at your discretion, but the activity that I am going to talk about is a cardboard box town. And this will involve you, and as far as collecting old cardboard boxes, different materials, you could make it a town just built of recyclables. It could be something outside, but part of that will be your job as a helper. You really don't want to take control of it, but you're there to help. You're a town helper. Now, you can collect play toys. Dress up different costumes. Or I've also seen online, and I've also hyperlinked this, there are things like a community helper paper hats that you could print out and cut out, and the kids could get to play different roles. So that's a really low-cost option. You can also look around after Halloween. Sometimes there'll be sales of different costumes. You go to thrift stores or just get creative at home. Certain things you do need to consider will be cutting of cardboard, cutting of different things. If you're working, especially with younger kids, you may not want them to have too sharp of a scissors. So that might be a role that a parent would have. But I would definitely suggest, and this is an important one, have the kids come up with a supply list for you. You don't want to go and actually do it for them. The magic of Roxaboxen was that it was built by children for children. So that's the heart of this activity, really. Now, once they think about their businesses and they get going, you're going to want to remind them that it may not all be built in a day. It's going to take a long time to build a town. So could really be like a whole summer-long activity. This could be something that you do that will take up a whole lot of your time, but it will be fun and engaging the whole way through, encompassing all different kinds of skills, and remembering as you go to provide them the opportunity to make choices and discuss with each other what they want in their town. And maybe it might seem really silly to you, but I would say go with it and let them be the drivers of their town. And you really actually might end up being surprised at the end with how deep they can go with this and how much they get out of it. Now, here is a plan B in case you really don't have the room, don't have a backyard or a place to take over your house with cardboard boxes. You could also do a mini town right here using smaller items, but still involving that community planning effort where they're really thinking about their community, they're looking around, they're talking to each other, and and engaging in the work of childhood, which is play. And it's pretty good work. So That is my lesson. Sorry, not my lesson, my activity that includes dramatic play for young children. If you have any questions or you would like some more resources, please feel free to reach out. My email is here, kcicchino@albany.edu, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much.